Hello, everyone. Happy Thursday here on INE Live. I'm your host, Catherine Brown, and we are talking about the cloud today. Specifically, we're giving you an introduction into a concept that we've introduced called Mount Cloud. It's a pretty cool concept. We're going to give you some details and all the ins and outs of what went into this and what you're going to get out of it coming up in just a few minutes. We've spent a lot of time focusing on cloud so far in 2022, how it's becoming really heavily relied upon, more so even by businesses, and increasingly a critical skill that IT professionals across various verticals really need to know. So last month, if you've been following INE, you know that we announced INE acquired cloudskills.io, bringing in a ton of cloud labs and content. And then in the past few months, we've really spent a lot of time redesigning the entire cloud structure here at INE. So we're going to dive deep into that today. We'll let you in on some secrets. We've teased a lot over the last few weeks. Today, we are ready to spill the tea on all the details. So as always, we're answering your questions as well. First, a bit of housekeeping as we do each time we stream here on INE Live. I want to let you know we are streaming live right now across social media platforms, including LinkedIn, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and Twitch. Be sure to like and subscribe on the social media platform you're using so that you can get notifications when we do go live and stay in the loop. We, of course, want you to get involved, talk to us, talk to others. We love to see that chat coming in. Already see some questions coming in from Larry, from a few others there on chat. So keep them coming. Bring your good questions and your comments. If you have a comment, go ahead. Feel free to drop it in. We have a team monitoring chat. If you have a question, do us a favor, put a Q at the beginning so it makes it easier for us to find those questions as we're going through the comments on chat. We will get to as many as we can today. And with that, I want to bring in our guest of honor today. It's Mike Pfeiffer, Director of Cloud Content here at INE, a very familiar face on INE Live and founder of cloudskills.io. Mike, thanks for being here with us today.
Thanks, Catherine. Good to be back.
Awesome. Also have Scott Cederbaum with us today, Chief Marketing Officer here at INE, and another familiar face, certainly no stranger to INE Live. Scott, happy to have you here. Thank you.
Hey, everyone. So glad to be here to talk about Mount Cloud.
All right. So Mount Cloud. This is a term that we've introduced over the past few weeks. If you follow INE on social, get our emails, you've probably been introduced to this concept. But from a high level, Scott, I'd like to start with you and just kind of, if you could just explain the concept of Mount Cloud, what it is, what can people get out of it, and why was it important to create this type of concept?
Yeah. So I worked in digital transformation orgs along with marketing for years. And what I found during my time running digital transformation at a couple of different companies is that the cloud has meant different things to different people. It's also a concept that not everyone within an organization understands. So, cloud engineers have one version of what cloud is. Executives have another version of what cloud is and what it should be. And I kept on thinking to myself as we were talking with Mike and bringing cloud skills in, how do we start talking about this so that people at every level of the cloud, whether they're paying for it, investing in it, trying to be able to be an administrator within the cloud platforms, or ultimately, trying to achieve the pinnacle of becoming a cloud architect or a multi-cloud architect, is actually able to understand, have the same language. And as we've been discussing this amongst ourselves at INE, this concept of cloud functioning as a mountain really started resonating with almost everyone internally, and a lot of the people we were having external conversations with as well.
Yeah, so this concept is broken down into a few different steps, right? And it starts with driving around the mountain. Again, Scott, I just want to have you kind of dig deep into this concept. You're driving around the mountain, right? You're taking a look at it. This is basically from a novice perspective. And then I'm going to pass it over to you, Mike, for some insight into the content that goes along with this particular step. So Scott, let us in on the content.
That's exactly right. This is for people who really, they've heard of cloud, they understand that cloud has value to an organization, but they're not really even certain how to get under the hood, so to speak. So this is for people to understand how data storage works, backups, how to do data analysis, how that works, and the types of people that you would want on a team if you're building out a cloud. So this isn't really designed when you're driving around the mountain, this baseline content that we'd be providing in blogs and content on the MyINE platform and some really basic labs. It's not designed for the IT professional or even the IT executive. It's designed for allowing an entire organization to be able to come together on what is necessary to run a cloud team.
So, Mike, what is the context that goes along with this? The content that people can dig their heels into.
Yeah, and I'm really excited about this as well because, like Scott said, I've seen a lot of different organizations trying to tackle cloud and get in there, and totally agree. It is a climb to that summit. So what we've done so far, we brought a lot of content over and we've talked about that and we can get back into that, but the ICCA that we just released, the INE Certified Cloud Associate, is definitely, in my view, one of the ways where you start that journey, right? You're at the bottom of the mountain. And anybody in the IT business can get something out of the content we have in the ICCA and the certification, right? So it's not just for engineers; it's going to serve engineers, but it's also going to serve everybody else in the IT organization to understand. All right, kind of like Scott said, we've got storage that we need to do in a different way. We've got compute resources that we've been doing on physical servers or virtual machines for a long time. We're trying to figure out how to do that in the cloud now. Maybe we're trying to figure out how to optimize those applications and transform them from the old way into a new way, containerizing them and doing serverless. So, it is a lot. And I know when I first started teaching cloud, one of the things I did was I started at the very top, at the advanced layer, right? And there's only so many people that can start at the top right now. And so I think, this approach of taking everybody in the organization on a journey is definitely something we need to do.
So let's speak to those people. Oh, go ahead, Scott.
I was just going to say, I think what I love about the ICCA and the structure of how we're building this cloud content is the fact that cloud's not easy. I think Mike alluded to this. It's really the thing that got me the most anxious when I was first transitioning a couple of my other companies into the cloud was just getting called into the CFO's office asking about the bills. Why are these so expensive? When should I expect these to continue increasing? And just learning the basics of how to store data correctly, how to use serverless so that you don't have boxes running all the time, running simple commands or simple pipelines. All of that is really critical to ensuring that you're not only is your cloud investment smart and running correctly, but also saving money. And that's why starting at the basics and allowing everyone in the organization to understand the concepts that make cloud work, to me, is really critical for any enterprise that's trying to either make this move or trying to invest further.
And we've talked a lot on just among ourselves, among people on the INE team and on streams here on INE Live about just the incredible crossover that there is now between technologies in various verticals, right, Mike?
Yeah, absolutely. It's very easy to start at the bottom, just looking at cloud engineering and then get pulled into something way more advanced. And that's the thing that I like about what we're doing, because we're bringing people in. And to me, the cloud is very much like a blank canvas. And so as an organization, you can find new ways to do stuff that you might surprise yourself as a company. I know that individuals do that all the time. So, the content that we've got right now on the INE platform basically maps to things that you would expect, like job roles, DevOps engineer, architect. But like I said before, that's kind of like jumping into the deep end of the pool, which we want to have that type of content for everybody. But there's also that climb to the top, starting out as an engineer. And that could really go in a lot of different directions at this point. It could take you into developer, it could take you into an architect. And so anyways, we're really building out those paths in these certifications. The next one we're working on is a cloud engineer, multi-cloud engineer, because let's face it, everybody's talking about the fact that, hey, sometimes when you're architecting a solution, it makes sense to use a database service over here from AWS while we're doing other stuff in Azure or vice versa, right? Or even Google. So those conversations are happening. I've been on calls with customers recently where those conversations are happening. And, right now in the industry, there's not really a clear path on how do I use multiple clouds at the same time. So to me, it's an exciting time to be doing this stuff because we're really, painting the path that everybody needs.
And I love that phrase you use and the picture it paints, just a blank canvas, because there is so much opportunity. I want to get to an audience question because this is on topic. I think it's a really important point to make here. This is from Larry Esparza watching right now. Larry, thank you for the question. Larry asks, are the new cloud engineer trainings or certifications supposed to get you ready to work?
Yeah, so the thing I'm excited about what we're working on, our labs and kind of the project focus that goes with the labs is really the real world hands-on work that you're doing. And I spent a lot of years, standing in the front of a room lecturing and going through slides, and there's only so much of that you can do until people start falling asleep, right? So this is exciting for us because we have the theory, we've got the, everything that everybody else is trying to do. We got guidance for certs and stuff like that. But what's exciting to me is being able to cut people loose into a lab environment that mimics a real world scenario, especially when we're doing multiple clouds. As we build up to the top of the mountain, imagine being able to tell those stories of how you really did those projects, hands on. You're working on the same platforms everybody else is. So very
one,
cool.
one more question as we're kind of focus on this driving around the mountain. For those who are at this level or who are, on this path right now, what are some of the opportunities that they can look for? Say they want to stay in cloud, right? What are some of the opportunities that this kind of path can set you up for?
Well, Scott mentioned a really interesting one in my view, which is the financial side. I think that we're going to see, a FinOps movement of people optimizing for cost, which we haven't really seen a whole lot yet. So I think that'll be really interesting. But beyond that, just the engineering stuff, cloud engineer is kind of a wide net that you're seeing being cast out of the job market. There's a lot of job openings out there for that because a lot of organizations, to Scott's earlier point, they're starting out with cloud and they don't really know what's possible yet completely. So, they might call a cloud engineer something that another organization might call a DevOps engineer, right? So being able to go through these projects and understand, hey, this is a developer's role, writing code and building apps that leverage these services, and a DevOps engineer's role, doing the projects to get that code deployed, make sure that the quality is good and then deployments are successful, things like that. The top of the mountain architecture, right? Very hard to do. Those are all lanes that these certifications that we're working on to lead up to. But anybody climbing the mountain will have those same opportunities. So to me, the big ones are engineering, just in general, developer. And then you've got DevOps, architect, and then there's all kinds of specialties as well, networking specialty, security specialty. So, the list goes on, and we're building content that's going to serve all of those paths.
And the one other thing I would say is don't forget,
go ahead.
and just because of my passion and background, don't forget data scientist, right? I mean, I think there are tons of data scientists who are used to coding locally or answering questions, but if you are building smart apps or decision-making apps and they need to interact with other development items in the cloud, data scientists need to know how to get that data out of the cloud, run algorithms, clean it, whatever operations might need to happen, and they need to be able to push it back into the systems of record in a lot of cases. And that runs the gambit on all of these cloud platforms, from Glue to Data Factory to the serverless functions that exist to even having EC2 or other analytics boxes built. There's so many data science options in the cloud, and I think that it is the number one skill that a data scientist in 2022 needs. And I think it's also the number one skill that most data scientists in 2022 lack or don't think they know more than they actually know. And I love what we're doing again on the INE side, because these basics are what allow them to make good decisions about storage, transfer, and ultimately analytics, which can all be very expensive processes in the cloud if you don't know what you're doing.
Yeah, that's a great point, because in working with a lot of application developers over the last several years, I've noticed the same thing. It's very difficult to understand the infrastructure concerns of running these apps. So awesome. This is going to be awesome to be able to serve the entire industry on how to do that. So I'm super pumped about that.
Scott is our resident data scientist champion, always pumping that up. So thank you. Yes, thank you for bringing that up, Scott, mentioning that. As we're here at the base, I want to just kind of take us back on this journey. So Mount Cloud concept, right? We've been driving around the mountain. The next step is starting the hike, right? And this piece of this concept is maybe for those who don't directly engage with cloud, but work around cloud content and cloud professionals, right? Like a novice level introduction to the base of the mountain with Scott, what we call souvenirs that you can take with you up the hike. Can you explain this concept a little bit more?
Yeah, that's a great question. Starting the hike is basically understanding all of the basics that go into the different cloud architecture that exists out there. So when we go into it, I'll let Mike really dive in. You're going to learn about how all three of the major platforms, AWS, Microsoft Azure, Google Cloud Platform, how they work independently and how they might work in an interoperative environment at the base level. We're going to go and talk to you about the difference between public cloud and private cloud and how that works, and where the onus on private cloud might be that you have to maintain the products in your servers. Public cloud, you've got those maintenance pieces and multiple redundancies built in. And then the different concepts around software as a service, platform as a service, infrastructure as a service, and then putting it all together. So the main idea is that when you finish the process of beginning this hike, you know what the products are, you know the different ways of interacting with the products, you know the pros and cons, and you're able to start making either business decisions about which product to use, or how, being able to figure out which product makes the most sense for you to focus on more. Because at INE, we have tons of training on Azure, we have tons of training on AWS, and as that library increases, this is going to be what helps you when you're first starting, or you're an enterprise and you want to train some junior level employees. Allows them to know what to choose next, what makes sense for them and their organization and their training journey.
Yeah, I'm going to pass it over to Mike now, just to dive in really to the specifics on that content, because there is so much there and plenty of room for opportunity as we continue going.
True. Yeah. So to me, kind of, I'll share a little bit of my own background because I went through this as well. So when I first got into looking at cloud as a career opportunity, was longer ago, right? It was like 2012 or 2013. But I first did everything we're talking about, right? I got a lay of the land. I looked and saw that AWS at that time was really moving further than what Microsoft was doing. And I started to think about, well, what would my role be in here? Now that I understand like what the concept is and how this works from a basic level, like how's my past going to roll into this, or how's my current experience going to kind of dictate or influence what I'm going to do next? So anyways, I had a lot of background in automation and, doing a lot of scripting and things like that. So I focused my efforts, like on infrastructure code, which is a thing in the cloud world that a lot of people are doing and working on. And so it was kind of just like that. And I think there's that individual's journey of, once I know the basics, where's my interest and where am I really going to be able to apply my strengths? I think the organization goes through that as well, and so to my previous comment, sometimes you surprise yourself once you get past the basics. But yeah, that to me is really cool opportunity, because so many people will get past that first base layer of the mountain, and then they'll have an intuition or an idea to try something out, and then next thing you know, now maybe we're doing all of our apps as serverless. We're not doing things the way we used to. So yeah, I think that it's an opportunity to find out what works best for you, what works best for the organization. And like what Scott said, there is private cloud, there's public cloud, there's all these different options, but usually the way that it goes, right, is you get good with one cloud platform, it really well. We kind of call that an anchor cloud in the industry. So, when I first started, AWS was my core strength, but learning Azure was easy because I knew AWS really well. And these platforms are very similar. So kind of like that's what starts to happen when you pass that base level of knowledge. And then you can kind of go down these roads we're talking about of, hey, do I want to be more of a developer as an individual, an architect, a DevOps engineer? And then as an organization, what technologies really make sense for us to solve our problems? Are containers and Kubernetes really something we should do? Those kinds of things start to emerge. And, that's what we're trying to build, is all of those things to enable all those scenarios.
So can you get specific, Mike, about the content that goes along with this kind of broader concept and this, these goals and the things that we talk about that are very important to learn? Can you get specific about the content and how that aligns with those goals in that roadmap?
Sure. So one of the ones that, let me start backwards from the top of the mountain. We have a certification path on the platform right now that is Azure Devops, and it's the, it's aligned with a Microsoft certification, but it's full of content and other things that we're adding to it that is very, very applicable in the industry in terms of doing labs and running through projects. So that one is probably the most advanced one off the top of my head I can think of as a good example, because it takes you through learning infrastructure as code, using things like Terraform, using in that certification path Microsoft's technologies, which would be like ARM templates and what they call BICEP, which is infrastructure as code, tooling and solutions. We take people through understanding CI/CD, which every team in the world is trying to use to release updates, and not just software. I mean, that was a pattern from the software industry, of course, but people are now using that pattern for all kinds of things. So also for deploying infrastructure. And when that, when you get into CI/CD, you also get into things like working with GitHub. So we've got a bunch of content on GitHub. And by the way, we actually have an awesome boot camp that's going right now as I talk about this from yesterday, today, and tomorrow on GitHub, which, every company, every single engineering team, anybody doing cloud, the expectation going forward is going to be, we need to understand how that works, right? So we're teaching that kind of stuff. And it can start to get a little intimidating, right? Because it's developer centric, but climbing the mountain is all about breaking down some of those advanced concepts. And I think once you get into it, you realize it's really not as intimidating as it was before. So beyond that, CI/CD and infrastructure code, we get into monitoring and quality and things like that. But I want to stop there, make sure that because I thought I heard somebody might want to jump in there. And is there a question?
I was just going to say, I think the GitHub content is awesome. I've been peeking in throughout the last couple of days, and I think it's great because again, I'm thinking about it with teams that are just jumping into the cloud and using GitHub or and Azure and a lot of other Microsoft products. They really ask you to try to use Microsoft DevOps. This is a new strength for a lot of people, especially those who are used to developing on-premises architecture. So, I think a lot of us take it for granted. Oh, people can just learn how to use GitHub or learn pull and merge requests properly. But really the basics and the foundation of utilizing these products correctly is super critical in any digital transformation environment, which is why I'm so excited about the fact that we've layered that base camp and we're building content for that base camp so aggressively so that people who are moving up the mountain have the basics really properly trained into them so that they're not making basic mistakes as they're moving into those engineering and architect roles.
Yeah, I really agree with that. And one of the things that I'm excited about on that is that's usually one of the things that kind of gets swept under the rug, right? It's like, yeah, the GitHub thing is important, but we're talking about Azure, so you got to figure that on your own. That happens all the time, right? Or even in the AWS conversation, or even Google. And so in addition to everything else that we're doing, we're closing the gap in those kind of ways. We're talking and training, talking about and training to stuff that may not get any attention, which is, is very important. So GitHub and collaborating on code and projects, and even just having your own GitHub presence as an individual so you can showcase the projects that you're working on and learning a little bit about like writing markdown so you know how to do documentation. It's huge. And, honestly, it's something that we're doing internally, like on my team and across teams in INE, just to collaborate on stuff. It's super critical. But those are the kind of things, Catherine, kind of working from the top of the mountain backwards, more advanced stuff that we've already got content for, but we need to help everybody get to that top of the mountain. So it's quite a hike.
Yeah, it is. And I want to kind of advance us a little bit. We've driven around the mountain, we've started the hike. The next step is really getting into the hike, right? Hiking Mount Cloud. This is for intermediate to experienced professionals, and you understand at that level that you don't do it all in one go. There's some give and take there, right, Scott?
Yeah, this is really, to me, this is really where the people who are walking down this path are starting to climb. They're starting to figure out what areas might I want to specialize on. Maybe I'm, for the enterprise teams out there, for the individuals who are really racking their brains, what type of cloud solution do I want to use to solve this problem? Because I think the one thing that we know about cloud, and all of us can agree on, is that there's 12 different ways to do the same thing. So what we at INE want to be able to do is ensure that you understand what the next steps would be, that we have the training that allows you to make decisions as to which product or which approach you want to take, and that you're able to learn it at the expert level that's necessary to implement it properly. So when we're talking about making this climb up Mount Cloud, it's all about how do I implement this? And our goal here at INE is to build a library of training with hands-on labs. It's always going to be what you see from us stepping forward now in the cloud world. that allow you to learn these intermediate concepts around implementation across a host of cloud concepts, whether it's application programming, serverless, data pipelines. We want to make sure that you are able to figure out the solution that is necessary for your project, and that you are able to take the learnings and do it in the cloud platform of your choice.
Yeah, Mike, I wanted to ask you, if you were mentioning kind of picking an anchor cloud, right? So is this the point at which people need to pick an anchor cloud, or is that something that they do when they're sort of driving, starting the hike, exploring, or do they have the freedom to wait until they really get into the hike to figure out which anchor cloud they want to go to?
Yeah, I love that question. And I think that, you'll start to formulate your idea when you're at the bottom of the mountain. And then once you really get into the hike is when I think you probably double down and have an anchor, because it really takes like getting your hands on it, to Scott's point. I'm a huge like sci-fi geek, so I love the first Matrix movie. There's that scene where Morpheus tells Neo, there's a difference between knowing the path and walking the path. And to me, what we're building is that walking the path, because there's a difference in just watching somebody do something in a video and you doing it yourself. Huge difference. And especially when you're going through scenarios that happen in the real world, but you don't normally see that in the video. Walking the path, like putting that into practice yourself, all kinds of lights start coming on, and it really does make a massive difference. And I spent so much time teaching and doing videos and working in environments where there wasn't enough hands-on. And I would have people come up to me afterwards and say, dude, I still don't know what I'm doing. Even people get certified and be like, I still don't know what I'm doing. So, the hands-on piece is massively important. That's how you're walking the path. And that's, once you start doing that, that's when you might say, hey, Azure's for me, because where I work, Azure is what the company's using. So I know if I, walk that path a little bit, that might get me into that game in my company. So, the anchor, I think, is really dependent on your circumstances of what your goals are, where you work, what access you have to those kind of opportunities. But yeah, like starting to walk and get going. And then I think that that's when you'll start to have the feeling of, all right, getting really good with Azure. This is my anchor cloud.
Awesome. One of the reasons, and I was just thinking of this, one of the reasons that we refer to this as Mount Cloud is because it's not easy, right? We didn't call it like anthill cloud. This it's an intense undertaking to become an expert in these fields. I'd love for both of you to weigh in just with, what do you say to people who get started and then just feel like they have to pull back, or feel like, they fail here, they hit a wall. How do you keep going through that?
Yeah, I'll jump in first there.
Yeah, you can start with you, Mike.
Sure. I'll just say that this is a continuous learning process from here on out if you're going to be in cloud. And I think that in technology in general, but cloud is massive. If you were just going to focus on building applications only, that's something, right? That's a lot of work. But then to get those applications and understand the architecture and the performance considerations, the cost, how to deploy and how to get everybody on the team collaborating, it's just a lot, right? So, I think that getting open to the idea that you'll never figure out every single answer is what you need to do, and be open to, hey, this is a continuous learning process forever. And don't worry about that. I mean, these cloud platforms, if you look at the services that are on them, it's mind-boggling how much there is. So I would say just forget about, knowing every single answer, and just get good at whatever area of cloud you're focused on right now, which, if you want to be a DevOps engineer because that's where everybody's making a lot of money, that's what I would focus on right now, but it's all about getting in the game, getting started, getting your hands on there, and being open to just continuous learning. And you're right, Catherine, it is not easy, but it's massively rewarding, because the things that we're building on these platforms are changing the world, literally.
Yeah, it sounds like that almost insatiable thirst for learning is a huge asset in any industry, but particularly in this industry, Scott.
100%. So I think I would say there's two things that I would advise people to do. One, continue learning. Understand that companies like INE are really focused on ensuring that you have the resources necessary to be able to tackle the challenges that you might be facing in cloud. And one of the reasons why I'm here is because I'm so passionate about the fact that cloud is difficult to learn. It is, as Mike said, there's so many different technologies within the cloud ecosystem. There are so many different ways of being able to tackle the same problem, that being able to have a partner like us in your learning journey, in your project journey, if you're on the enterprise side, I think is really important to being able to ensure that those projects and those learnings are done well. But I think the second piece I think is really understated is the need for collaboration. Cloud is an area where there are tons of different people touching your platform, touching how data is piped, touching how the operations of the cloud work. And I think creating an organization that is collaborative, where people know how to work together, where you know how to ask questions, you're not feeling like you have to be the expert on everything, is really critical to success, to having strong cloud security, and ensuring that your cloud applications are working to the best of their ability, so that you're constantly servicing your teams and your customers, and that you have the uptime and the metrics that you're looking for.
So as we continue following this metaphor, you are hiking Mount Cloud. You're at this point intermediate, potentially experienced. How do you reach the summit, and what is the summit, Scott? As we as it relates to this concept of Mount Cloud.
Yeah, to me, this is when you hit that architect level. You understand the cloud concepts well enough to be able to build out a cloud project plan, to be able to build it from the ground up, to be able to optimize an existing cloud architecture so that it's either more efficient, it's cheaper, safer, whatever the goal might be, and that you're able to work cross department and cross team to be able to execute that vision. And this is somebody who has a deep knowledge of each of these platforms, and quite frankly, with where we know the industry is going with multi-cloud and hybrid cloud, these are people that know lots of platforms really well, to be able to work across teams, get the architecture built right, and know how to delegate the correct responsibilities to the correct teams within the organization. So for me, it is somebody who is able to really understand and manage a large scale cloud or multi-cloud project for an enterprise.
And just to draw a distinction between the metaphor, to the point that both of you were making earlier, reaching the summit does not mean you stop learning, right? It doesn't mean that you stop training. It doesn't mean, oh, you're done, you're here, you've reached the pinnacle. It just means that you're at a certain level where you can learn broader technologies. Is that fair to say? Is that accurate, Scott?
I would say it's accurate. I'm looking forward to hearing how Mike would characterize it. But I think reaching the summit means that you are concentrating on learning all of the new functionality in a pace that makes sense. Like, you have these platforms change on a regular basis. You don't necessarily need to know the nitty gritty of how a configuration file needs to be loaded, or how exactly to do a certain type of data pipeline, but you have to understand the changes in the version updates to various products within the cloud infrastructure that you're utilizing, so that you're able to work with your experts to ensure that, again, you have the most optimal setup moving forward.
Yeah, I agree with Scott. Everything that Scott said is spot on. The things that I would add to that would be, the summit is a little bit of a mirage in a way, because when you get to the top, like, things change and you got to learn something new. But the fact is, anybody that is at the summit of cloud is, just like Scott said, somebody that's very seasoned in what they have done. And ultimately, to me, they don't need a script, right? And that's one of the things that bothers me about some of the traditional certifications, is you're just memorizing for the answers. So somebody at the top of the mountain, they may not know every single answer off the top of their head, but they know enough to be the quarterback, to be like, all right, we need to do this over here. I need to pull in these resources from over here. And it is not easy, but someone like that continue to look forward, open-minded. The last thing that I'll say is, somebody at the top of the mountain should be pulling others up to the top with them. So mentorship is huge in that regard as well.
I'm so glad to hear you say that. And I want to dig in a little bit to one of the points you made, Mike. The ICCA that INE recently released is not particularly designed for people who are at the summit, right? It's designed for people who are a little bit a little bit lower on the mountain, still building their skill sets and some of that basic knowledge. Can you go into some of the content roadmap for what INE has planned for people who are nearing that summit or who are already there?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm really excited about that because imagine, layers stacked on top of the ICCA, the ICCA being the bottom of the mountain. Right now, we're currently working on a multi-cloud engineer path that would be comprised of, I don't know, 10 or 11 courses or something like that. But within those courses, imagine beginner, intermediate, and advanced level labs, right? Which would also mimic projects that you would see in the real world. That's what we're currently working on right now. And as we build these paths, we're just going to stack on top. So multi-cloud engineer is next. Beyond that would be, cloud architect. Above that, DevOps potentially. We see DevOps and architect is an advanced layer, very different than each other. But anyways, we're stacking those layers of certifications on top. And then, along the way, inside those paths, there is vendor specific stuff. So if you wanted to focus on AWS or Azure only, we have the content for that. But what we're building is up to the multi-cloud solutions in engineering, architecture, DevOps, and even more as we go forward. So we have a lot to build, but I think, like we've said, the fun part of this, both for us building it and for everybody else consuming it, is that it's extremely real world. It's hands-on. So that's what's on the roadmap. I can go deeper into that, but that's kind of the high level idea. Follow the same pattern as ICCA, which, by the way, I keep seeing social shares on that. People are excited about that, and I've seen people taking the exam. So just imagine that times 1,000. That's where we're headed.
Yeah, that's very exciting to see. Scott, I know that I know you see the posts on LinkedIn and other areas coming in, people excited about passing the ICCA. Do you want to weigh in on that, just in terms of where, company-wide direction, where we're headed in terms of catering to those people who are at or near the summit?
Yeah, again, I think people who are at or near the summit, I would say Mike is spot on. It's about making sure that they continue to have the ability to execute without needing the script, so to speak. That they're able to understand the cloud platforms well enough to be able to do their work, choose the correct paradigm, and then ultimately move forward with the projects that are on their plate, the optimizations, that type of thing. I think with the lab platform that we've built, and I'm really excited to see the release of these new courses with these project-based labs. I think they're going to be not just super informative from a learning perspective, but having seen some of the thought process going behind them, they're going to be a lot of fun, which is really exciting to me. We have the ability to create exceptionally complicated labs all the way through the multi-cloud and the hybrid cloud. And I think as experts are really trying to think about how to tie the various pieces of infrastructure within their organization together, whether it's different cloud environments, whether it's getting on-prem environments to talk properly to the cloud environments. The fact that our infrastructure is able to support these really complicated use cases, and therefore projects unlike others that you're seeing within with other training companies, I think it's going to be a fantastic challenge for people who are coming in, have a lot of experience, and are ultimately looking to learn what the next great challenge is going to be, and to have the technology right in front of them to be able to see it, to be able to test it, and not have to worry about doing this on your own equipment, which I think is can be scary for a lot of organizations as they're trying to make these transitions.
So regardless of where you are on the mountain, whether you're driving, hiking, you're at the top, so-called the summit, it is absolutely critical, whether it's a person, a professional, a business, that you're able to scale your skills, right? Can you break that down, Scott, and how important that is and how you can do that?
100%. Yeah, we're building this so that if you are an individual, regardless of where you are on your cloud journey and your cloud career, or you're an organization, our goal over the next 12 to 24 months is to build a content library that will allow you to basically be able to move in the direction that your organization is moving, or to help you choose what direction your organization should be moving in. So on the individual front, we are going to release certifications. Those certifications are going to be tied to various careers within the cloud ecosystem. For the business side, our goal is to ensure that you have the content necessary to be able to teach your organization the critical skills necessary for you to complete the projects that are on your cloud roadmap, and to also allow you to ensure that you have the right people employed to be able to complete those projects. And what I mean by that is not simply, helping you make the decisions as to who to employ, but also to allow you to be able to take employees who are looking for upward mobility within your organization, bring them to the bottom of Mount Cloud and have them start their hike so they can grow with you. Because one thing that is certain about the cloud world is that there are not enough trained engineers, architects, admins, DevOps folks to be able to do this across every major corporation and every small business that wants to move into the cloud. And organizations are going to have to make that investment to train their own people. And what INE is committed to doing is to be a partner for those organizations that have employees at various levels who want and need to be in that cloud conversation.
Yeah, I think that is a great point, Scott. I want to get to a question from Shahed Khan. And this, I think, Mike, you can probably take this and draw a useful distinction here. Shahed asks, hi, everyone. Will this cloud platform training be vendor neutral? We've talked a lot about multi-cloud, and we've talked a lot about the different cloud providers. Is it vendor neutral?
No, it won't be vendor neutral. There will be concepts that are vendor neutral, but the content will always pen to a certain provider. So, imagine a course on infrastructure as code. We'll frame up the idea, the concept of infrastructure as code, and you'll be working on projects that would map to Azure, AWS, Google, things like that. Excuse me. So yeah, I mean, there's theory at the agnostic kind of vendor neutral level, but very tactical, hands-on for whatever platform you need, so it's a mix, it's a combination, but it's not, I would say it's not a heavy focus on vendor neutral. So it's very specific once you get into the details of doing the labs and things like that.
Can you explain the strategy behind that?
Yeah, sure. I mean, I think the biggest challenge that I see of trying to hit every single cloud is just creating a lot of content for people to move through. Hundreds of hours of videos, it's enough to put anybody to sleep, right? So I want to be able to make content that is relevant, that you can take some theory and apply it in multiple cloud platforms. And like I said, we want to be able to reduce the amount of hours that you need to do that, because let's face it, everybody, is struggling to learn something new in this ecosystem. So the idea is that you will learn from beginner all the way up to, an expert level, these concepts across multiple clouds. So that's kind of the idea. Instead of like having to make you go through a path for Azure, then go through AWS, that's the idea.
Yeah, that makes sense. I just wanted to kind of give a little bit more context around that question and around the answer to it, and why specifically, this is the path that we're pursuing, and why we think it is the best path.
Yeah, one of the things I saw go by yesterday, Microsoft just released a multi-cloud management service, basically, where they're going to be helping people do some permissions and things like that across AWS and GCP. So the multi-cloud conversation isn't going anywhere. It's only going to get louder. So, we got to think about how do we build content for that, because that's going to happen to everybody that works in IT that's focused on cloud. There's going to be a time where, you're really good with something in Azure, and here comes AWS into the project because of whatever requirements there are. That's just a reality. So, we need to be able to do multiple cloud style content in a way that gets everybody to the top of the mountain as fast as possible without sacrificing on quality.
Yeah,
and I feel like
you eventually have to know everything.
But I think that's what I love about the way that we're doing this, is that we're starting at the conceptual layer, and then we're teaching it across the various cloud platforms. So it's not as if, as Mike said, you have to learn everything about AWS and then learn everything about Azure. You're able to go in, I need to do this type of concept, I need to work with this type of product within a cloud platform. Here's how you do it with Data Factory. Here's how you do it with Glue. It's not going to necessarily be, here's all of the AWS content, learn it. Here's all the Microsoft content, learn it, which I think is a major advantage in this increasingly multi-cloud world.
I'm just reading through some of the comments right now. I love this one coming in from our friend Bob. Bob wouldn't want to challenge Mount Cloud in sneakers instead of hiking boots. Thanks for creating the base camp. And I think that's such a good analogy to go along with this. You do need to have the right equipment, right? When you're hiking a mountain, you need to have the right gear. Same when you're pursuing a career. You need to arm yourself with the right gear and have the right tools. And certainly INE is, and ongoing training, Mike, is one of those tools.
It really is. And, just like when people hike up Mount, what is that one? Geez, I had it on the top of my head. That one where they do like they hike all the way to the top, it's like 30,000 feet. I don't know why it's escaping me, but anyways, that's,
Everest, Kilimanjaro,
Everest, thank you. Everest. Yeah, like you're not going to hike Everest in one weekend, right? Or on a Saturday. It's like you got to pace yourself and take breaks on the way to the top, and you need help, right? You need to drink some water along the way. Like, so all those metaphors are really accurate. This is a journey. This is a long play. That's not a bad thing. Everybody's going to be learning consistently going forward anyways. So let go of like that and then just get in the game, start hiking up the mountain. That's what I would say. And we've got everything primed and ready for you. And we're going to be building as you're hiking. So, I mean, some of the stuff that we've got planned, going back to what Scott was saying of making sure that you can go through real projects that hit different difficulty levels. That's really going to light up some insanely cool scenarios, because you could take those labs that you're doing and put, some of the stuff that we're showing you to do in your own GitHub, so as a practitioner, you've got some not only hands-on experience, you've got something that shows, that you've done it in the real world. You get a certification as well, things like that. But yeah, I mean, to me, that's one of the reasons I'm so excited about this.
Yeah, and just to add to what you said, just start going, just start hiking. We're going to be building stuff, but we're also going to be there with you through channels like INE Live, where we can take your questions. You have direct access. That's why we do things like this, so that you, as a student, as a client, can have direct access to the people who are building this content and give them feedback. Ask them direct questions. So that's one of the things. You're not doing this alone. We're hiking right along with you. And Mike, to your point, we're kind of pulling you up, with us. Before we wrap this up, really quickly, I just want to go to both of you and ask if there's anything else that you want to add, anything that is important, particularly surrounding this sort of this hike metaphor, as people are getting started in their cloud careers and all the way through the summit and the peak. Scott, let's start with you.
I think cloud is one of the coolest career opportunities right now in tech. And what I would just say is, it's time to learn. We have a fantastic content library that's getting better by the day. The ICCA is out, and you can join a number of really awesome peers who have already finished the content and have been certified in the ICCA. So I think there's no better time to start your cloud journey wherever you are on Mount Cloud than right now. And I would jump in and sign up for INE and start working through the ICCA content right now if you're at the beginner level and you want to learn more.
Awesome. Fantastic. And tag us on social when you pass that. We want to celebrate right along with you. Mike, any last thoughts before we wrap it up?
Yeah. So last thoughts, I would just underline what you just said a minute ago, Catherine, of being able to engage with everybody. To tack on to what Scott said, the boot camps that we do, like the one that's going on this week for GitHub, it's a really cool way to get in there and not only meet the instructors and ask questions, but also to make friends. Coming to these INE live streams, engaging with the other students that are in a boot camp, it's a great way to like have like-minded people around you that are trying to do the same thing that you're doing. I think that's really underestimated. I know when we used to do live trainings, we'd always like team people up and stuff, and that's very effective. So as a learner and somebody, ramping up, expand your social network a little bit, come to a boot camp, join these live streams and share what you're learning, ask questions, and just keep following along with what we're doing.
And just as a plug before we move on, I will say like those boot camps are fantastic, are fantastic values. Anyone who's an INE Premium subscriber gets access to every boot camp that we run for free on the INE platform. So whether it's introduction to GitHub, networking concepts, cybersecurity deep dives. These are, you have access to the instructors for 3 full days. You have access to a ton of peers that are at the same level as you. You can work with them on projects. You can start doing the networking. You have the opportunity to ask questions. I think it's one of the biggest values of the INE subscription, and I would encourage any of you who are interested to check out the boot camps page on our site and the platform and start signing up, because we have some really amazing opportunities popping up over the next few months that we're going to be announcing shortly. And I would definitely encourage you guys to check them out, sign up, and start meeting our instructors and other people.
You can always count on the chief marketing officer to bring out the value proposition, right? No, I'm just kidding. That's an absolutely fantastic point, Scott, and 100% accurate. Scott, Mike, thank you so much for being on. Really appreciate it. Appreciate you taking the time to be with us here today.
Thank you,
It's been
Catherine.
a pleasure. Thanks, Catherine.
All right. See you soon. That is going to wrap up today's stream. Thank you so much for watching, for engaging, for asking awesome questions. If you missed it live, you can look for the replay across our social media channels as well as on the INE website. We'll be live again right here next Tuesday, this upcoming Tuesday, March 1st at 1 p.m. Eastern, to kick off Women's History Month with a special focus on female pioneers in technology, past and present, who have really helped forge a path for women in tech. It's a conversation you'll definitely want to be here for. We encourage you to like and subscribe on the social media platform that you're using so you can stay in the loop for more details on our next stream and for notifications when we do go live. As always, bring your comments, your questions, your enthusiasm, and get ready for a good time. We'll see you next time. Until then, have a great week.